The widow's gut was said to be cursed in traditional tales. An impassable frozen cemetery. Although Parker Schnabel arrived with an idea that the other guys had never considered. Optical slits. This dway plant can operate SL much more efficiently. So that ought to boost our yardage and assist us in completing all of the pay. Utilizing state-of-the-art drones and other techniques, his team conducted extensive ground scanning, discovered a concealed passageway, and unearthed long-lost riches. However, the ground began to tremble under their feet right as the money started flooding in. What it uncovered, though, was something even more buried than gold. A lethal trap with a valuable secret hidden inside. Some places in the Klondike mining industry are so hazardous that not even the hardest crews will venture there. They gave it names that went around in the dark, associated with malfunctioning machinery, dashed hopes, and unforgettable mishaps. One of the spots was the Widow's Cut. Nobody dared to operate the ancient, partially collapsed mineshaft because of how loud it was and how terrible it was. For reasons unrelated to hearsay but grounded on undeniable fact. On that frozen wasteland, a nightmare waiting to happen. Here, we are not referring to your average coal dirt. Permafrost was preserved in concrete like solid for a long time. Anyone who dared to investigate it was doing so while betting on their lives. Unpredictable, massive slabs of frozen dirt and rock could fall and crush anything below. As if that weren't bad enough, flooding was also a constant concern. Millions of dollars worth of machinery may be submerged in an instant if the shaft were to become filled with a concealed spring or even a tiny area of melting, as well as anybody unlucky enough to get admitted. It only takes a single slip-up to ruin an entire mining season. Yet, catastrophe went unnoticed by Parker. A possibility was visible to him. Parker saw it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, while the majority of miners dismissed it as a sure bet for failure. Oh, very unfortunate. Parker has been studying from his legendary grandfather, John Schnabel, since he was a little boy. Now Grandpa John has dropped a bombshell on him. Rest assured, Parker, I will overcome this challenge. Parker has always taken risks. Upwards he has always gone. Abundant land, abundant gold, loftier aspirations. While others, like Tunnybeats, depend on tried and true methods. No, quite challenging. Yeah, it's like all the good stuff is either in your head or in some other place, you know? Yes. Or you just don't care about the outcome. Yes. That tenacity is tempered by Parker's ferocious drive. He had bigger plans than simply having a respectable season. He wants 7,000 ounces. He would solidify his position as king of the Klondike with that number. After examining the Widow's Cut, he failed to notice any red flags. He noticed a gap. The gold that was hidden down there was his to seize if no one else was prepared to take the risk. He was taking a massive risk by sending his entire organization to a location with a reputation for crushing crews. Still, Parker was aware that risk entailed substantial payoff. Plus, he possessed a critical advantage that the older miners lacked. Parker got smarter, not harder, instead of ramming his way into disaster. Something potent was brought in by him. Observing from above. He and his group introduced a state-of-the-art LA system. New technology is revolutionizing the gold mining industry. Light detection and ranging is just what it sounds like, LiDAR. It generates an incredibly accurate three-dimensional map of the area by directing millions of laser pulses toward the Earth. That wasn't the end of it. They used drone mapping to fly over the entire frozen location alongside it. This combination allows them to effortlessly navigate through dense vegetation, uneven terrain, and trees. After years of being unable to do so, they were eventually able to make out the contours of the terrain beneath idle. While their competitors were blindly drilling through the Widow's Cut, Parker's crew had a complete digital model at their fingertips. Their search was for more than simply gold. They were on the hunt for a long-lost shortcut, a concealed vulnerability in the background. Some remnant that had slipped the notice of all those who had come before. Word on the street was that the widow's cut was legendary. The landscape was really harsh and bone-chilling. "Do you happen to have a copy, Tyson?" "Parker, I hear you. That entire cutback section is still frozen, you know. Is it going to be necessary to tear it all apart?" With an embarrassing number of failed efforts. But Parker's squad wasted no time in coming at it with an antiquated method. They were not taking chances. They were aided by liars and drone mapping. Everything was altered by what Wheezy discovered. From the outset, seemed as random noise, merely another strange shape among the limitless data. After a while, though, the pattern stood out. A completely straight line, unnaturally so. Theek had no such fissure. A vertical tunnel had been bored out by humans and subsequently forgotten about for many years. It lay buried beneath a layer of frozen dirt and forest detritus. From above, not even a hint of anything was visible. However, the data was truthful. Its depth was more than 40 feet. More than 130 feet into the freezing tundra lies the unknown. Their approach to the widow's cut could be radically altered if the vertical shaft were to materialize and remain steady. Reopening a century-old mine shaft in one of the most perilous North American gold fields would have been the default for most workers. You'll find that same information in the instructions for Smart and Safe. Parker, however, was not typical of miners. Heck anticipated weeks of digging and fighting through rock-hard permafrost in order to construct a new ramp into the cut. Spending a fortune on each foot would be a waste of time and money. However, this shaft presented another route. By reinforcing heat and hoping it didn't crumble under their boots, they could skip the most treacherous section of the terrain and get right to the gold. Thus, the scheme was both smart and terrifying. Quickly, the crew swooped in. Stabilizing a decaying, frozen hole in the ground required steel beams and heavy-duty machinery. We tracked every step. Each noise served as a signal. A collapse could be triggered by stepping on a loose rock. There was more to it than that. A matter of staying alive. The walls were already worn and shaky. Several spots had developed pom-poms on the original wood supports. In several cases, ice had sealed the crevices as if they were cement. They knew there would be no time to react if something went wrong, so they worked in isolation. However, Parker had prior experience gambling on ice. His group was carefully selected, skilled and acute. They painstakingly constructed a reinforced tunnel layer by layer down the shaft. They had to beat the clock, the elements, and the stress of the unknown all at once. All of a sudden, they were at the base. What they beheld was more than just encouraging. Seriously, it's wasteful. Through the beam of their flashlights, they were able to make out a shimmer in the granite. A healthy vein of unprocessed quartz veining with dense, brilliant gold. There was actual, visible gold lodged in quartz slabs that had been walled off from the surface for nearly a century. There was no dust or flecks involved. Parker's geologist was totally floored. He had experience working on mining sites all across the globe. He was familiar with the appearance of high-value deposits. He couldn't deny that this natural gold structure was the most pristine and abundant he had ever seen. Entering that secret vault was like walking on air. The change, the atmosphere, the stillness, and the understanding that they had discovered something revolutionary were all felt by all. Unfortunately, we couldn't just stand and take it all in. Parker was familiar with Klondike's regulations. Such news travels quickly, and someone else will step in if you delay. The group then took immediate action. They labored tirelessly, working long hours with little downtime and nothing but pure excitement. They persisted because of the fervor of gold fever. After only 3 days and 72 hours of grueling work, gold totaling more than 4,000 ounces was extracted. The value of that one cleaning alone exceeded $110 million. Just one weekend of labor covered the full cost of the season. Everything from gas and tools to maintenance and payroll. It becomes crazy though at this point. There was no theme to that $10 million. Even that wasn't the best part. This was merely the first stage. Even in that cramped room, the quartz vein continued. The flow continued. The closer the geologist looked at the rock, the clearer it became that it wasn't a pocket. It was a subterranean component of a much larger system. They measured it, plotted it, and made rough estimations. The results were astonishing. Nearly 2 kilometers of solid, high-purity quartz containing gold ran through the vein. Moreover, the figures were jaw-dropping if the density was maintained across even half the distance. Gold has a potential value of $75 million more. This was no mere stroke of luck. It was a huge win. It has the potential to change the course of the gold rush. The show's highest-grossing single season ever. More than just figures, it meant something to Parker. It proved something. This moment is the culmination of years of aping, of doubting, and of taking risks that others deemed reckless. With some of the region's finest veins nestled beneath his feet, Parker had a clear idea of what his future held. Despite his little stature, Boot has become an industry icon. Gold, though, isn't one to remain silent for very long. The word spread rapidly. Word of Parker's strike waste quickly spread around the valley. Competing crews were interrogating. Residents were cruising by to have a look.